People of Reddit, what's the creepiest paranormal experience you've ever had? When we were young teenagers, we were all hanging out at a neighborhood friend's house when he decided it would be fun to pull out a Ouija board. We were all just stupid kids, ridiculously high at the time, so we really had no idea what we were doing with the board. We were sitting around the board in the living room just being dumb, asking silly questions about ghosts, spirits, dead relatives, etc. Suddenly, this guy's dog, who is a big old, morbidly fat mutt, jumps up, runs into the dining room and starts snarling and barking ferociously at the light fixture hanging above the dining room table. There was nothing there. There was no upstairs in this house. This normally sedentary pig dog is just totally freaking out at a light fixture hanging from the ceiling. He then lets out a spine-tingling yelp as if someone kicked him hard, and he spins around and runs out of the room yelping the whole way through his exit. The group of us just sat there with our mouths hanging open, wondering what the hell we just saw. When reality crept back in, we whipped that board across the room and bolted out of that house like it was on fire. It was honestly like something out of a movie, only this really happened. We all concurred later that this was not something we hallucinated due to the excessive butt we'd inhaled earlier. Story 2. This happened during a trip to Japan. Halfway through our trip, my friend, boyfriend, and I stayed at an Airbnb in Osaka. It was really late at night, and we quietly entered the building's lobby with our luggage. Above the elevator doors, we noticed a mostly black television screen with a faint light glowing in the corner. After pressing the up button, the television screen lit up to reveal an empty elevator. The faint light glowing in the corner turned out to be a screen that showed what floor you were on. I found the television creepy, but didn't tell my boyfriend and friend how I felt at the time. We finally let ourselves into the 5th floor studio apartment. The guys decided to head back out to get drinks from a nearby vending machine, but I decided to stay and unpack. Soon after, I heard them at the door frantically trying to get inside. They explained that on the way down, the elevator was acting strangely. The elevator stopped on the 4th floor, doors opened, doors closed. The elevator stopped on the 3rd floor, doors opened, doors closed. The elevator stopped on the 2nd floor, doors opened, doors closed. At this point, they said they were looking at each other, unsure of what to make of it, and then getting ready to defend themselves against whoever or whatever was messing with them. The elevator stopped on the 1st floor, doors open, nobody was there. After being reunited inside the apartment, we started to quietly unpack and unwind. It wasn't long before the doorbell went off. I don't know how to describe the next few seconds other than synchronized panic. I held a finger to my lips, motioned for the guys to check, and tiptoed to turn off a nearby light. The guys carefully made their way to the door. They checked the peephole. Nobody was there. I didn't sleep well that night. The next night, our friend decided to go drinking with some other friends, so it was just my boyfriend and me at the apartment. My boyfriend had fallen asleep, and I was hanging up laundry to dry. Then the doorbell rang. Without thinking about the previous night, I assumed it was our friend. I checked the peephole immediately, but all I saw was an empty hallway. I freaked out and woke my boyfriend. I didn't want to make any noise, so imagine me whisper shouting and gesturing wildly. He checked the peephole and even went out into the hallway. Nobody was there. On our last night, we started packing up for our trip back to Tokyo. I was in a real daze, seated at a table covered with my clothing and souvenirs. I wasn't doing anything productive, and the guys were nearly done packing. Then I noticed something glowing inside a plastic bag. I thought it was my phone, so I reached inside, but then I realized it was a Gashapon toy light still inside the taped-up plastic capsule. I held the capsule in my hand, and the toy kept flashing away. The guys finally realized what was going on, and we all just stared at it with wide eyes. My friend then said, "Let me see that," and once he grabbed it away from me, the toy light turned off. The guys then took turns shaking and inspecting the toy within the taped capsule, but were unsuccessful in getting it to light up. After the trip, I opened up the capsule by peeling back the tape and popping it open. To use the toy light, you needed to remove a carefully placed sticker on the toy, pull out this tab, and turn on a switch. Story 3. My house, England, was built just after the war. The surrounding 3 houses all had their residences die. Our house is just off. The feeling is always cold and noisy. I have a baby toy in the loft that will start singing randomly early in the morning. There is no way I'm going up there to stop it. My neighbor's cat got hit by a car across the road purposely, and I have seen a black cat running through my house. I know it's that cat because she had an accident and her tail was cut off. I explained to the neighbors, who also said they had seen her run through their house too. I followed, more like ran after her, into my outhouse where she disappeared. Things get lost or moved, and a photo threw itself off my wall the other night and pushed down 2 family photos. I call the house Go Sneagle. Story 4. This is a story my dad told me about his childhood. When he was around 15, one night around 11 or something, he was returning to his home from his aunt's home on a cycle. When he was near a graveyard that was in the way of his and his aunt's house, a screw fell from his cycle's tire. He started looking for the screw on the road in the middle of the night without a light. He could not go home without it because his home was too far away and there were no mechanics nearby. He was unable to find the screw. When he was about to give up and start walking home with his cycle, he saw a tall man who asked him if he needed help. He explains to the man the situation. The man moves a few meters away from his place and picks up a screw from the ground, and he then puts it back in my dad's cycle and tightens it by bare hand. My dad thanked him and went home with a thought in his mind that he'll go to the mechanic's shop in the morning and get the screw perfectly tight. The next morning, he went to the mechanic and told the mechanic what happened and asked him to tighten the screw. When the mechanic tried to tighten the screw, he was unable to do that. He told my dad that the screw was completely tightened. The fact that it's obviously not possible for a normal person to do that, and my dad didn't see that man's face, makes him believe he encountered a ghost that night. Story 5. Live in a small town where a Civil War battle took place, albeit a very small battle. My good friend growing up lived in the more uppity historical district that had all the pre-Civil War era houses. I was super excited to be able to stay with him because they had a decent shed-looking building in the backyard, all brick, 1 window. They had it renovated, put carpet, a small bathroom, a kitchenette, and a small living area with a full bed that pulled down from the wall. As an 11-year-old boy with a Nintendo 64 and all-night access to a TV and snacks and being from a lower middle-class family, I was pumped to stay in it. The inaugural River Boys 64 hideout. We even painted a small sign saying that to hang in the window. Wild imaginations, I know. All goes well for a start. We crush Code Red Mountain Dew and snacks, play Mario Kart and party as well as 007 for hours. TV as loud as we want, AC as cold as we want. We start to turn everything off and lay down to go to bed. He and I just share the full-size bed. Not long after we laid down, we started hearing chains rattling. Not very loud, but not quiet either. Then comes a low hum, like a dozen people softly humming a hymnal. I have no idea how long it lasts, but being in so much fear, it felt like forever. We lay there not saying a word. After it ended, both of us terrified, after a little bit we started whispering about how we needed to get back to his house. Literally flung open the door and just ran as fast as we could. We slept on his parents' floor that night. We told them about it, but they heard nothing and had no idea what it could have been. After being scared about it for a few days, we kind of just forgot about it. The senior year, 2004, about 7 years later, we have to do a report on the town's history from the Civil War era. We could choose any topic we want to write about it. I wrote about the fact we had 32 saloons and 2 churches in 5 blocks of our downtown during the Civil War era. There was a girl in class. They report about slave owners in our town. One of the facts she brought up was that out of the 17 homes in the historical district, 16 of them had slave quarters. She had gone around town and taken pictures of all the old slave quarters. One of the pictures that come up on the PowerPoint is my friend's house. And there it was. What I thought was the large shed they had renovated was the old slave quarters. She had a picture of the front of the quarters. There in the window was a sign that read, River Boys 64 Hideout. I'm pretty sure my jaw hit the floor, and I turned whiter than snow. Shook me to my core. That memory is seared into my mind. Story 6. This is an experience my nan and granddad had. My dad was born very early, around the 6-month mark, and weighed around 2 pounds. He was born in 1968. He was brought home, and my grandparents' expectations were managed as he had many health complications due to how premature he was. One night, my grandparents were in bed, keeping an eye on their baby who slept in a cot next to the bed. They both sat up as my great-granddad, who had passed years before, walks through the wall and stands over the cot. Both my grandparents witnessed this as clear as day. My granddad said out loud, "Please don't take him. He isn't ready to go." My great-granddad turned around and just walked back through the wall. A priest was called out not long after, and up until around 15 years ago, there was holy water in a few rooms of my grandparents' house. Story 7, I live in the woods in Florida. I'm 13 miles from the nearest anything, and that's a gas station. I'm 25 miles from the nearest town, and my only neighbors for 2 miles are my parents, who live across the street from me. I'm a single mom. It's just my son and me out here, and our dogs. In my living room, I have a giant gray sectional couch in the shape of an L. My son, who was sick when this happened, likes to pull up the ottoman, making the couch a giant bed area that he then piles all the blankets and pillows we own to make himself a camping nest and sleep out in the living room. Now that I've established some background info, the actual story. So I was home from work earliest one night, and my son had built his nest on the couch and passed out early, like 8 p.m., so I had time to myself and a sleeping child. I decided to play some Skyrim uninterrupted for once. I'm playing my game and smoking my bowl. I've got my medical card, just having a great time when I hear my pit bull Aries bark. It's not a bunch of barking, just one insistent, "Hey Mom, you left me out and I want to come in," bark. Any pet owner should be nodding their head right now. We all know our pets' voices. I pause and look at the time and I say out loud, "It's only 8:30, you're fine." It's a beautiful night out anyway, and go back to my game. About half an hour later, he barks again, just that one, "Hey Mom, you left me out here," bark. It interrupts my concentration, and I ignore the urge to get up and let him in. I continue playing because I don't get much time, working 50 hours a week and taking care of my kid and house when I'm not working. Amid a dungeon quest, and I'm concentrating hard, but about every 15 minutes I hear the one stupid bark, and I start to get really annoyed because every time he does it, I get the literal urge to go let him in. And it just tips me out of my train of thought and ruins my game immersion, and I'm starting to get angry. If I wanted to let you win, I'd let you win, but you're fine. Finally, he does it that one last time. Most moms know what I mean. I had had enough, so I toss down my controller thinking how stupid this dog is, and as it hits the pile of covers next to me my kid is buried in, I hear a snore, a dog snore, and I move the blanket to see Aries dead asleep next to my kid, not a care in his dumb doggy brain. Immediate fear and dread and heaviness like I've never felt washes over me. I can't describe it any better than an ancient fear. It felt old and terrifying, and I literally heard a voice say in my head, "Don't move, baby. Don't get up. Just keep playing like you don't know anything is wrong and it will go away. If you take one step towards that door, you're in trouble." I picked my controller back up and kept playing. I heard the bark a few more times, but around 11:45, the air in my house felt normal again, but I slept out on the couch because I wasn't leaving my kid alone. To answer some questions preemptively, yes, my parents have dogs too, but theirs are in a dark every night. I asked if she left anyone out, and no. I also have 2 wiener dogs. They did not react to the barking at all, making me think only I could hear it. Had it been a strange dog, my 3 should have reacted. It was very clearly my dog barking. He does the same thing anytime he thinks he's been out long enough, which is why I ignored it to start with. Story 8. So my family and I were living in Germany back in the 1980s, and we rented this nice old house. I was 2 at the time, and my mom was pregnant with my first brother. Things didn't really start happening until a few months after moving in, and it was pretty weird. The house always had an odd feel to it, but you always get that when you move into a new place, right? Started with things not being where you last left them and kitchen cabinets being open. The main thing was the stairs to the attic. It was out in the open in the hall right next to my brother's room. It was only like 6 or 7 steps up until you got to the ceiling and a latched door. You could get about 2 steps up and would immediately be filled with overwhelming dread and fear. I can remember only thinking, "Get out, get out, get out, get out," over and over until I could walk away. Friends would come over and go up the steps to sit down and would get this look on their faces and just start crying uncontrollably. One night when I woke up in the middle of the night to use the toilet, which was just across the hallway from my room after I was done, I sleepily made my way back when I got hit with the coldest blast of air I had ever felt. I was maybe 5 at this time. My neck and back felt tingly, and I felt like shivering. I turned to look down the hall and saw the top half of a younger man walking down the hall, and then turned to go down the stairs, but just straight up vanished. I was pretty sure I dreamed the whole thing up, TBH. My mom claims that while she was pregnant with my first brother, there was an older man that would stand in the doorway and had this aura of, in her words, pure evil and sickness. My mom was super sick, but so was my dad on the nights the old man was around. During her second pregnancy, she says that the younger man would stand at the doorway but facing away from the bed, and that he made the room calm. The old man never bothered my mom during this time, but after my second brother was born, he stopped guarding the door. My first little brother would have awful night terrors. He would wake up screaming at the top of his lungs like he was being murdered. After my second brother was born, he would have the same terrors. They would wake up screaming at the same time. It was super weird, and I would have the same nightmare every night for the 6-ish years we lived in that house. It was always me standing at the base of the stairs to the attic, and then the floor would vanish from under me, and I would fall into total darkness. There was no escaping it. I would fall into it every night. Another instance was when my mom told me to stop getting in the cupboards for snacks. I told her I hadn't been in them, and she told me to stop lying or I'd be grounded. She came and grabbed me later that day and took me to the kitchen, pointed to an open cabinet and scolded me. I argued that I didn't do it, and she then pushed me to go put my nose in the corner. She then went back to the kitchen, and then all was quiet. Too quiet, like that eerie quiet that creeps you out. I turned around, and my mom was just standing in the kitchen doorway, mouth wide open. I asked her if she was okay, and she just continued to look in the kitchen, not moving. I walked up to her and looked in to find every cabinet and door open. We just stood there, shocked and scared. My youngest brother was asleep upstairs in his crib, and my other brother was with my dad at a doctor's appointment. The scariest incident was when my mom was setting the table in the dining room. Dad was watching TV, and my brothers and I were playing upstairs, and I heard crashing, like glass breaking. I ran downstairs and saw my dad rush into the dining room, and my mom was just standing there, the dishes broken on the floor in front of her. My dad asked if she was okay and went to help her, and she says, "Get out." My dad stops and just turns white as a sheet. I guess they had been hearing the old man in their dream nightmares as well, telling them to get out of the house. They didn't tell me till years later. Mom then started screaming, "Get out," over and over again, ripping things off shelves and throwing them to the floor. The weirdest and scariest part was that she then started shouting at us in fluent German. My mom barely spoke any German, just enough to get by. She spoke French and English at the time, and the look on her face was weird. It didn't look like my mother, and it's hard to describe, but she looked older, and her eyes were so full of hate. I had never seen my mother look like that before. My father told me to run upstairs and shut the door, and he would come get us when it was safe. I ran and hid with my brothers in their closet, terrified at what was happening. My dad came up some time later, and I went to see my mother. She was sitting on the sofa, sobbing. I remember hugging her, and she held me so tight I could barely breathe. After that possession happened, my mom called in a priest to try and cleanse the house. The owner fully cooperated with us after my mom and dad told him and claimed the old man we described was his grandfather, who had previously owned the house before dying in it. He has no idea who the young man was, though. I can remember a priest coming over, and it was so bizarre. He would start to pray to try and rid the home of evil or whatever, and every time something would happen. The phone would ring, the postman would knock, my brothers would cry, a truck drove by with his horn going. The priest persisted, but as soon as he started up the stairs to the second floor, he fell down them. He claimed he felt 2 hands push against his chest, and then he said this was beyond him. He left, and we never heard from the church. The final straw was when I was playing in my room and was standing in front of my large mirrored closet, and it fell on me. Luckily, my bed was right next to me, and it stopped the closet from crushing me. I was around 6 at this time. There was no way for me to be able to tip this closet as it was butted up against the wall and was a heavy, solid one that came with the house when we moved in. Not to mention, I was standing away from it, nearest to my bed. At this point, we were all stressed out, so much so that it was affecting my dad's work. His boss pulled him into his office one day and asked him what was going on. My dad had said he wouldn't believe him if he told him, but I guess his boss persuaded him too. Turns out my dad's boss was a long-time practicing Wiccan and said he could help him. Not sure as to how that conversation went down, as my dad said he doesn't really remember all the details, but he remembers his boss explaining to him the process of cleansing the house and how he had done other ones before ours. So the day comes when my dad's boss turns up to our house with a bunch of his fellow co-workers, such friends, and the landlord showed up to help. Everyone gets a task to prevent the cleansing from being stopped, like when the priest had tried. My dad's boss and another guy go down into the cellar to start and gradually move through the house. My mom and I sat in the living room, and a friend had come to take my brothers to her place while this happened. I can't remember why I was at the house, TBH. Sorry. These guys got to the attic stairs. Shit got real weird. The house felt awful, like the air was buzzing with static, and I felt sick to my stomach. My mother was feeling it too, as I could see her gagging and trying to hold everything down. The guys opened the attic and started cleansing, and you could hear things in the house moving. Not sure what it was, but it sounded heavy. Turns out that the source of all the things happening was an old armoire in the attic. My dad told me the landlord recognized it as belonging to his grandfather before he died, and it was full of old clothes, knickknacks, and some Nazi memorabilia. They all first tried to remove the armoire from the house, but it wouldn't budge. So they took everything out of it, and it still didn't budge. They thought maybe it had been nailed to the floor, but found nothing holding it down. They eventually called the other guys, and 6 grown men could not move that armoire. Dad said it was the craziest thing he's ever seen in his life. So my dad's boss and his other Wiccan friend decided to seal the armoire in a circle of salt and sulfur. Once they had completed that ritual, they finished the cleansing of the house, and no lie, guys, it was like the house sighed. It felt like a breeze blew through the house, like every door and window had been open on a windy day. They weren't. Everything was closed during the cleansing, and my hair even moved with it. It was so weird. Then silence. Not just audibly, but that uncomfortable, heavy feeling the house had always had was gone. It truly felt empty. It was such an odd sensation to me. After the house had been cleansed, the attic was locked up, and that was that. No more apparitions, nightmares, fear around the attic steps, no more opening cabinets, and no more possessions, even though it only happened the one time. My parents were so happy that the people who helped out were invited over quite a few times. My dad says he still talks to all of them to this day, and he said he still feels he can't ever thank them enough for saving us from that horrible nightmare. He even became a Wiccan afterwards, and still casually practices, but not as much as he used to. Anywho, that's my long-ass story of the haunted house I lived in as a child. Sorry it's so long, and I hope you enjoy reading about it. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe if you like this video.